So, learning to water gild, unfortunately, is all about practice. I've been practicing now for 22 years. I'm sort of getting there. But it can be really expensive because it's gold, especially if you're doing an antique like this. You have to use 23.75 carat to get the colour match right. That can be between £30 and £40 a book, and it's a really expensive hobby. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you a way that you can learn to water gild at not quite that sort of cost. You can't learn with metal leaf because it's too thick. You have to learn with really thin leaf. You have to be able to control the gold, pick it up, lay it down. So you need to practice with some sort of really fine leaf. So we're going to go upstairs and gild something. Right, this is a gold chart. It shows you all the different types of gold leaf starting at 24. I use this top row here for the antiques. Then as you drop down, different metals are added to it, so the colour changes, and you come right down here to a 6 carat white gold. Now currently in the UK that is £11.34 for a book of 25 leaves, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than the £30 or £40 book that I'm buying up here for my antiques. So it would be great to practice with a much cheaper leaf, but it's the same feel, it's the same thickness or thinness. So what I've decided to do is practice on this. It's a wing, and it came from a console table that I restored years ago. I took a mould, I've pressed it out in compo, gessoed and boled it up so it's all ready for gilding. It doesn't matter what colour this is because it's just going to go back on my wall and be a decorative piece. But something like this that isn't an antique that you can practice on, and it doesn't matter what the colour is. I mean, this is a lovely colour, and this will make a lovely piece at the end of the day. If you haven't got moulds and compo, you could buy the silicone moulds and cast something and maybe even use plaster. Have a wood carving. You do have to go through that process of the gesso and the bole because water gilding demands that, but you have to practice those techniques anyway. So get to this point. It's beautifully smooth. I've really sanded this, so I've got hardly any marks in that. It's all as smooth as I can make it. So I've got some cotton gloves here because, and as you can see, I'm handling this right at the edge. Your fingers contain grease, and if you touch this on the top here, you will make a problem for the water to sit on the surface. So because I've got nowhere to grip this properly, I'm going to be putting my cotton gloves on. But first I will get the leaf. No, I won't first. I'm going to sharpen my knife. This is just 320 grit sandpaper. A few times over there, clean it off. Your knife has to be really clean and no fingerprints on your knife as well, because fingerprints on the knife will pick up the gold. I'm calling this gold. I know it looks like silver, but it is actually called white gold. So I'm going to decide first of all how big a piece I'm going to cut to put on here. So I think I'm going to cut it into 4. So straight across the middle, one at the top, one at the bottom. Right, I've got the gilding lacquer. I'll put the recipe for that in the description. It's just water, alcohol and a tiny bit of rabbit skin glue. What you're doing is activating the glue that's in the bowl. There's a tiny bit of rabbit skin glue in there because I like to put it in. Some people don't even bother, but I do. So really wet the area that you're going to be gilding. If you see a dry spot as you've picked your gold up, re-wet it. Picking up some grease off my face Yep, it's already drying because it's quite warm in here. And then lay that down, pat out any air bubbles, and that is the same feel as gold leaf. I can't tell any difference. So it's a really good leaf to practice on. I'm going to be water gilding the whole of this wing, just because it's a good way to practice. You could oil part of it, make it quicker, but if you really want to learn water gilding, unfortunately you've just got to do it. So really, really wetting the surface there. Got some grease off my face. There's no dangly bit at the bottom, so it's all on the hairs. And then hold it really still and then drop it down. Right, so I've got a big air bubble there, air gap. If you don't press that down, it's going to split there. And this is the problem about gilding decoration, is you will get splits in areas like that, but you can come along after and patch that. Blow it up onto your knife, drag it down, blow it flat. I'm going to want some smaller pieces now, so I'm going to do the 4 and then go down the middle that way. I'm going to swap to the smaller tip. This one's great for the full length, but as you can see I've started to bend it, and that's what you end up doing when you pick up smaller bits, so it's just easier to have a little tip. You don't have to, but it just makes it easier. Right, it's already starting to dry. Too much talking. Alright, sorry about that, my battery went on the camera. So we're putting on some smaller pieces. I'm just patting the air out from underneath. So I'm using the smaller tip to pick up the smaller pieces. So I'm wetting the top edge, but I also want the leaf to go right the way down, if I can fold it down that way. So as flat as you can on there. Right, so I've got lots of little bits, so I'm going to cut that one that way, and I'm going to have 4 that way. It is harder to pick up littler bits. I'm not terribly greasy today, so that's where having the Vaseline, that or the lip balm on your skin somewhere. I tend to put the lip balm on my lips because I'm used to the brush going up to my face. So remember to wrap over as much as you can, wet the bottom edge as well as that top edge, and let the leaf wrap over. It just gives a neater finish. Right, there are tiny little splits in this, but I'm going to come along at the end and do all my patching. I'm going to get all the gilding done along the whole thing, let it dry a little bit, and then do some patching. Right, so a little bit of gilding lacquer. You've got to sort of try and fold it in. So these bits right in there are going to be really awkward. So I'm going to try and use the corner of the square and press it in. Right, that's all gilded. I've left it overnight to dry. I'm going to come along with my burnisher, start burnishing. I used 8 sheets of this white gold, which that is £3.60. So that's not too bad, is it, to learn to water gild. Right, there we go. I've thought there could be a follow-up video because I've got the opposite wing. This is the Kohlner high gloss gilding system, basically like an acrylic oil size. And when you paint this on, the molecules go really, really flat. So when you put the gold on, it looks like a mirror. And I think it would be interesting to compare the high gloss that you get from the water gilding and the burnishing with this system. So I think my next video will be all about this Kohlner and to see if I can get it to work.